bunch of football commits that got ripped off while you were gone, DY. The only thing we mentioned was Lawson McGrath, but simply so I could make the point that he's John McGrath's son, but also that he attends Blue Valley West High School and was not born when I graduated in 2007.
We're getting old.
Yeah. H.D. Davis, a running back.
High definition.
You know what? I'm going to read the names, DY, and I will let you take where you want to start here. Lawson McGrath, H.D. Davis, Nick McClellan, Hannibal Navies, Maxwell Lovett, Garrett Dixon, Kingston Hall.
Okay, I'll just say a little blurb on Lawson McGrath, obviously legacy commit from John's alma mater high school in the Overland Park area, but good athlete. I'm not trying to besmirch anyone here, but this isn't like a handout type of legacy offer is what I would say. He's got the traits to be a solid contributor in Manhattan when he reaches his potential. And typically kids like this that are good fits at K-State will maximize themselves enough to where they are a contributing member of the football team. So I think I like the pickup. You know, position wise, it's probably pretty open. He could play linebacker, DN, tight end. Now I will say there is a scenario if Kent State doesn't get Ian Premer, that Lawson McGrath becomes your tight end in this class. I think that is potential. H.D. Davis, speed comes to mind real quick there. I think once they lost out on Zephan Walker, who picked Oklahoma, I think they kind of went to H.D. Davis right away, and he committed on the spot during his visit. So a speedy back, actually. So don't let the stereotypes get you on that one. He can play a little bit.
What Derek means is that H.D. Davis is a white running back.
Thanks, John. Are you my interpreter?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Hannibal Navies is a safety that I think most would assume that he was going to be the backup plan, but it was actually the first safety they took. So I think they like him a whole lot better than most realize. I don't know of any other Power 4 offers on that one specifically, but someone that they really targeted early in June and took when they didn't have to because of the timing. So it tells you how much they like him. And then I'm trying to go through here. Kingston Hall, don't think we talked about him yet. It might be the best high school defensive tackle that they've added since Coach Tui been the coach. I mean, under Chris Kleiman at all, since Tui's been here every year at Kleiman. Kingston Hall, I think, has the potential to get in the 4-star neighborhood. He's not necessarily there yet. Right now, he's like a mid 3-star. It wouldn't surprise me if he becomes a high 3-star, that type of player. They beat Baylor, who really, really wanted him as well. So that was a really good head-to-head recruitment. Maxwell Lovett, receiver from Colorado, same high school as Oliver Miller, the offensive tackle commit to Cherry Creek High School in the Denver area, the biggest high school in Colorado, a notorious powerhouse program in that state. Again, no Power 4 offer as well to him. I don't believe so, but we were told, we were given his name, months ago, actually, like 4 or 5 months. They've had their eye on him. I wonder if they kind of wanted to keep him under the radar a little bit so that he was more attainable when they did pounce. And obviously that worked, but they worked him out at camp, I think, to maybe confirm or validate and verify some of the things that they liked. And obviously they liked what they saw because they took him right on the spot. Garrett Dixon, guy could be a corner or safety, got positional versatility in the defensive backfield. He's from the St. Louis area, head-to-head win over Iowa State. Like, Iowa State really wanted him. Kansas State came in, landed him, and he canceled his visit to Ames on top of that. And then I think the last one to talk about is Nick McClellan, a safety also from the St. Louis area, just committed to the Wildcats. He got an Iowa offer just before he took his official visit to K-State, committed on the spot. He's also camped at K-State 3 times. They love him. But after committing to the Wildcats, I believe this past weekend, he was also visited Iowa. So we'll see if that one gets dicey whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be a defender at Iowa, like, I know Iowa is kind of a punchline, but that is, solid program that turns out a lot of really good pros on the defensive side of the ball and plays really good defense. So we'll see. Monitor that. But Cole, you have any thoughts specifically on these guys before we talk big picture on the recruiting class?
The only thing I would add, like to your point on McClellan, the fact that Iowa wants him and brought him in for an official visit makes you feel good about the fact that you had landed him, because Iowa's really good at evaluating defensive players, especially in the secondary as well. But obviously, him taking an official visit right after committing to K-State is not a great sign. Love it. A guy that's, a burner, got some speed. I watched his film. Yeah, I think he's an under the radar type that maybe could be a pretty good player. 10.59, 100-meter. Kingston Hall, what DY said, sub, for a defensive tackle at what, 270, 280 pounds, running a sub 12-second 100-meter. It's pretty darn impressive. So that's a kid that can move.
By far the best high school defensive tackle they've signed under Kleiman, in my opinion. And going back to Lovett real quick, I had two different people give me a Jace Brown comp on him.
Okay. Yeah, Jace Brown was someone who, we were not thinking about, we're super pumped for Jace Brown to come here when he got on campus. That was not a recruit. That was a Harold Flynn.
Him and Austin Romaine, I think, were the two worst ranked kids in that class.
That's probably right. I don't think Jace Brown had a P4 offer from anywhere else. It was like South Florida, maybe, and a few other schools. And then I think he was rated as the third or fourth best receiver in that K-State class, because he had Andre Davis, who obviously didn't pan out. And then there was one other that was ranked above him as well. And then the kid, Wesley Watson, who left after 1 year and walked on at Texas A&M. So, and I can't remember there was a third receiver outside of Jace in that class. But yeah, I think that comp makes some sense.
Jace had offers from Tulane, Charlotte, Georgia State, Navy, Middle Tennessee, Western Kentucky.
Yeah. I think Lovett might add like a Boston College offer, which if you count that as a P4 offer nowadays. But yeah.
And making some harsh words on Boston College there, right?
Well, yeah. Still should have beat Nebraska in the bowl. Oh, we lost DY.
DY was very offended by your Boston College comments. They've got Bill O'Brien as their head coach now, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And they made a bowl last year. So, and we took a transfer from my Boston College team, Jaron Bradley, in State.
That's very true. Yeah, I don't know. Thomas Castellanos was a nice QB there for a minute.
Trayshawn Ward went to Boston College, transferred there last offseason. DY, did I offend you with the Boston College comment and you exited out?
Not sure what happened. I think my internet just kind of went a little haywire there.
That's easy.
I was actually looking at the class of receivers with Jace. You were right. Andre Davis, Wesley Watson. The other one was Trey Spivey.
Oh,
yeah. That's who we were excited about. I did see. I have no idea what this meant. It's not accurate, but Athlon's prediction for Arizona, or their preview for Arizona, had him projected as a starter.
I could see that. I think they were pretty void of talent after the Jed Fish departure.
Yeah, a lot of dudes left.
That'll be interesting to watch. K-State plays them September 13th in Tucson, or 12th, September 12th, Friday night.
It's a Friday. Yeah.
Wacky.
Big picture with this recruiting class. There is some, I think, fan frustration here that it's not as exciting as the past couple recruiting classes have been, where they've had some really high profile wins, some of those high profile in-state wins. I guess, what would you say, DY? I know there's a lot of factors here, financially, having to commit a lot of resources to keeping the current roster around, maybe holding some back to see what happens later on in this recruiting class. Your in-state rival obviously is having its best run here, where they're definitely spending more than they typically do. I think all these things are factors that's driving some of the fan sentiment about this recruiting class right now. But how much do you attribute each one of those things to what has happened here, and what is your overall feel on, should people be concerned about the recruiting class?
To be honest, I think it's a solid recruiting class. I think they're looking at the rankings a little bit too, and I think some of them are less than desirable right now because they're not thorough or complete. We're in a recruiting era right now, in my opinion, that June is so important, and schools use June now more than anything, more than ever, for recruiting. So some guys just surface a little bit later, and so you're seeing rankings as a product of that don't really become more firm and concrete or thorough until around the August time. So if we get to August and these rankings are still kind of meh, I get it. But I think there's a chance that a chunk of these guys are going to get a little bit of a boost between now and the end of August when the rankings get a little bit more, like I said, complete and thorough. So I think that's actually a pretty significant factor here, because if you look at all these guys that they've taken, when we talked about this, or I mentioned it before we went on the air, there's only like 4 guys that don't, I mean, maybe that's a lot to some people, but there's only, I think, 4 guys that don't have another Power 4 offer. I mean, you're still winning a lot of significant head-to-head, high-profile recruiting battles against some peer Power 4 programs. I mean, I'm just going through here, and I can mention at least one school a piece for some of these guys. For DJ Ackerson, that was definitely Oklahoma State was involved and really wanted him. Oklahoma was at one point wanting him until they pulled back. Keegan Collins, Texas Tech. Brandon Ford, TCU, Texas Tech, Baylor. Miles Tedecki, that one actually, the quarterback, that one actually slipped in mind. Was it Vanderbilt that offered him?
Did they? I can't remember if they offered him. But ESPN just put him as the 12th ranked quarterback on their rating.
Yeah, he's a 4-star on ESPN, and Cincinnati offered Miles Tedecki. Sorry for not getting that. Bennett Frazier, you went head to head and beat an SEC team in Missouri for him, right? Nick McClellan, he committed. He has an Iowa offer. He has, I think, 2 or 3 other Power 4 offers, and he just visited Iowa. Justin Morales, Texas Tech, really, really wanted him too. LaMarcus Barber, I think, is just K-State, but he's the one of the in-state kids you got. Garrett Dixon, you beat Iowa State for. Kingston Hall, you beat Baylor for. Oliver Miller, I think you beat plenty of teams for. You off the tackle out of Colorado. So I think people need to keep some of that into perspective as well, because I think there's recency bias a little here with the 3 or 4 that don't have another Power 4 offer were some of the more recent commitments. And as John alluded to, there is a sense of resource allocation here. Do you want them to spend all their money on some of these high school kids that may or may not be good? Or do you want them to lose, like a Tobi Osensami, Chidi Obiizor, or Jace Brown, any of the offensive linemen? Right? So Kansas State's different. KU didn't have anyone to really retain because a lot of their starters basically lost eligibility after last year because they were all seniors. Kansas State still wanted to keep a core of their roster for this year, and they'll probably need more money again next year to keep them and go on a chance to win the Big 12, maybe in back-to-back seasons. We'll see. So when you do that, then you don't have as much for an incoming class. So it's all about resource allocation, but they're holding back some too, because when December comes around, you always have to fight for some of your commits because teams come around poking and offer them more money. So then you have to offer more money to stay, right? That happens. Or if you want to flip someone else, you need money to go over the top of them. And obviously they have some right now where they're going to try to make a big push for Ian Primer now. So it's all resource allocation now. It's more NFL general manager than really recruiting at this point.
And has maybe changed a little bit now too, to where, I mean, we are now under the House settlement. You know, people have doubts about how well that's going to hold up, but theoretically, you now have this cap to worry about instead of just freely spending the money all over the place. I mean, you know, I don't know how exactly internally you're supposed to handle that, but
I don't know either. And I think that's part of the challenge for some coaching staffs.
Yeah. But it would be prudent with that perhaps to not go full Texas Tech, you know, right now, for instance. Put it that way.
Yep.
So yeah, and with the Power 4 offers, like I know some people scoff at that, like, oh, like that's the bar or whatever. I mean, well, it's kind of, you know, K-State's program relies on a lot of guys like this. Iowa State's program relies on a lot of guys like this. And nobody will want to hear it. But like I saw some comps like, oh, you know, it feels like Snyder 2.0 at the end of that. Dude, by the end of Snyder 2.0, I mean, it was like 1 out of every 4 guys maybe had other P4 offers. Like there were not guys with other Power 4 offers. That was just not happening there. So
I think there was classes where he only signed 3 or 4 guys that had another Power 4 offer.
Yeah, it got pretty bleak.
You know, they're pretty good at identifying, you know, more under the radar type guys and developing. And we just talked about Jace Brown and Austin Romaine, which are 2 of your lower ranked guys. And so I think they're good at that. And, look, I do get it. Like, it is a little bit underwhelming on paper right now as they sit, because 3 of your 16 commits are in the top 1,000 nationally in the On3 industry consensus. And in the last few years, you had like 8, 9 guys in the top 1,000, 5, 6 in the top 500 nationally, especially as you look at like the 2023 class that had Avery and all those other kids that we talked about. But to what DY said, 14 of the 16 commits currently have not been evaluated by at least one of the 4 recruiting services that is in that, in the mix of that On3 consensus number. And so once they get evaluations in, that will go up. Now, there will only be 3 recruiting services starting July 1st when Rivals moves off. But Rivals is one of those services that hasn't evaluated a lot of these commits. Now, when they get off the books, the On3 industry consensus numbers will change. But what DY already said, like, most of these guys have, P4 offers. K-State's been pretty good at evaluating guys. Some of these guys have camped in front of them. They're really good when they get to see them in person at a camp and deciding they really want somebody. Garrick Dixon was a guy like that he was too good to pass up after they saw him at a camp. McClellan, too. We'll see if they can hang on to him at the safety spot. But, yeah, we'll see.